Imagine walking through Windsor before dawn, when the tourists are gone and the flag above the round tower hangs limp in the windless air. The cobblestones shine faintly with dew. The lamps flicker against walls that have watched 1,000 dawns come and go. It is said the castle sleeps, but that is not true. Listen closely, and you can hear it breathe. A slow exhalation through keyholes and chapel doors, a sigh of centuries remembering themselves. For nearly 1,000 years, Windsor has been more than a residence. It is a body built of stone, its bones stacked generation upon generation. Norman conquest, Tudor vengeance, Victorian restraint. Each monarch added another layer, another locked room, another secret. And like any living body, it hides its scars beneath ceremony. Underneath the flagstones run miles of passages, some mapped, others lost. They connect dungeons to drawing rooms, crypts to corridors where no guard now walks. In one tunnel, masons found the remains of candles burned from both ends. In another, a sealed door marked only with a crown carved backward, as if whoever marked it wanted to reverse time itself. Every kingdom needs its ghosts, and Windsor has never lacked them. Guards whisper of footsteps crossing St. George's Chapel long after the doors are bolted. Archivists speak of pages that vanish from royal ledgers, names erased not by accident, but by order. There are stories of portraits repainted to hide faces, of letters buried beneath floorboards, of an unrecorded burial somewhere beneath the quadrangle courtyard. The official guides will not tell you these things. They will show you thrones and tapestries, portraits and pageantry, the illusion of continuity. But behind every polished surface lies something unspoken. Betrayals, disappearances, oaths broken beneath candlelight. Windsor keeps its dignity by never admitting how much it knows, and yet sometimes the castle itself rebels. Windows frost over in rooms without chimneys, music echoes where no musician stands. When the wind passes through the chapel at night, it carries not one voice but many, whispers layered like the stonework itself, repeating the same refrain. Remember us. Tonight, we will descend past the velvet and marble into the cracks history sealed too quickly. Because beneath every crown there lies an unanswered question, and Windsor has more than any of them. What remains unspoken is not forgotten. It only waits for someone to listen. Windsor was never meant to be peaceful. From its first foundation stone, it was built for watchfulness, a fortress that could see every approach and, if needed, bury every secret. Its towers were designed to intimidate, its chapels to forgive. Somewhere between those two purposes, the living and the dead learned to coexist. Beneath the crimson carpets and gilt ceilings lies another Windsor, one you will never see on a guided tour. It begins in the crypt of St. George's Chapel, where the air smells faintly of dust and candle wax. The steps downward are narrow, the walls slick with centuries of condensation. Here, in rows of lead coffins, sleep kings and queens who once ruled a world that now rules them. Yet even in death, some refuse to rest. Records tell of disruptions during renovations, vault lids displaced without reason, fresh scratches appearing on sealed lead. In the 19th century, a mason collapsed after hearing tapping from within a sealed chamber. He lived long enough to describe a sound like knuckles brushing wood, followed by a whisper he could not understand. The entry in the works log ends abruptly, job terminated at his own request. There are other anomalies. Beneath the Albert Memorial Chapel, surveyors once detected a hollow space large enough for a room, but no entrance. When a small borehole was drilled to investigate, a puff of ancient air escaped, heavy with the scent of myrrh and decay. The workers sealed it again, swearing they heard the faint strains of organ music rising from below. Some historians claim Windsor's sublevels were used for far darker purposes than burial, safe rooms for confession, hidden archives for correspondence too dangerous to preserve. In the reign of George III, servants spoke of a mirror cellar where secret meetings were held, its walls polished to reflect light, but also to remind those within that every oath was witnessed. No trace of it remains, though a single pane of burnished glass now rests in the royal collection, mislabeled simply architectural fragment. From the outside, Windsor's grandeur suggests permanence, but walk its corridors alone, and the illusion fractures. The tapestries breathe. The portraits seem to follow. Each stone absorbs the weight of a story untold. The castle is not only a home, it is a tomb disguised as a throne, a monument built to outlive truth itself. Every kingdom keeps its ledger of the missing. Windsor's, however, was written in invisible ink, the kind that fades when seen and darkens only when forgotten. The castle's history books are meticulous: christenings, coronations, funerals, victories. Yet between the lines there are absences large enough to echo. One of the earliest was Thomas Henslow, a minor steward in the reign of Henry VIII. His duty was to manage the royal falcons, and his handwriting appears regularly in household accounts until midsummer of 1536, the same month Anne Boleyn fell. After that, his name vanishes. No pension, no burial, no dismissal. In later inventories, a single note is scrawled beside his post, replaced by another. Local rumor claimed he saw something he should not have in the lower chapel, that he was quietly sealed into the foundations beneath the new staircase. When restorers removed those stones centuries later, they found a silver falcon pin and 3 human finger bones fused to the mortar. Another absence is less obscure, the case of Princess Sophia, a cousin of George III. She lived most of her life within the castle's inner apartments, her correspondence censored, and her windows barred for her safety. When she died, the funeral was private, the coffin unmarked, the location undisclosed. A century later, workers repairing a drainage culvert near the Horseshoe Cloister uncovered a small lead box stamped only with initials S.A. and the royal crest. Inside were lace fragments, a lock of hair tied with blue silk, and nothing more. The box was quietly reburied. Even the archives bear scars of subtraction. Whole pages have been sliced from the journals of royal physicians. Margins are smeared, signatures truncated mid-curve, as if the hand that wrote them was removed from existence alongside the text. During World War II, when Windsor became a refuge from bombing, staff swore they saw light beneath the library floorboards at night, though the electricity had been cut. An engineer investigating found a cavity containing a desk, a burned typewriter ribbon, and an unfinished memorandum beginning, "His condition is worsening." Officially, the memorandum does not exist. The missing are not all dead. Some are merely misfiled by history, servants transferred without notice, guards who left one shift and never returned. Their absence hangs in the corridors like drafts that refuse to die. Tourists pass through, feeling the cool air and assuming it's the stone. It isn't. It's memory. Windsor's secrets are not buried in earth but in administration, the bureaucracy of forgetting. Each erased name tightens the castle's silence, another stone added to the invisible wall between truth and record. Beneath the grandeur, beneath the heraldry and the hymns, there is a ledger still open, waiting for the next disappearance to balance its sums. Because the most enduring mystery of Windsor is not who was crowned within its walls, but who never left them at all. Among Windsor's endless halls, the walls themselves tell stories, sometimes unwillingly. One of the most unsettling tales concerns a painting that has hung, vanished, and reappeared so many times that the royal curators stopped cataloguing it altogether. They call it the cursed portrait, though officially it has no name. It first appeared during the reign of George IV, a monarch as obsessed with beauty as he was haunted by it. The portrait was said to depict a woman of indeterminate age, her face caught between sorrow and accusation. No one knew who commissioned it. The painter's signature had been scraped away, and the frame bore no heraldry. Yet within weeks of its arrival, servants began to speak of whispers in the grand corridor, a soft sighing that followed them even when the gallery was empty. When the gaslights were turned low, the woman's eyes seemed to move, not following, but avoiding the viewer, as if ashamed of being seen. A valet who covered the painting for cleaning was found later trembling, muttering that beneath the dust he had seen brushstrokes that didn't belong, hands painted reaching out from behind the sitter's chair, faint and pleading. The portrait was removed, then reinstated at the insistence of the king, who claimed it was the finest work of the continental school. Weeks later, he fell gravely ill. In his final delirium, he raved about the lady in the shadows, who refused forgiveness. After his death, the portrait was hidden in a storeroom near the state apartments. Decades passed. During Queen Victoria's reign, an inventory clerk rediscovered it, and unaware of its reputation, rehung it in a guest hallway. Within months, strange accidents followed. A lamp exploded without cause, a maid fell down a stairwell, a visiting cousin reported hearing sobbing through the wall, though no one occupied the room beside her. The Queen ordered it taken down and stored in the castle's north tower, sealed behind a false panel. In 1940, during wartime evacuations, the portrait surfaced again when soldiers used the tower as a barracks. One officer sketched it in a letter home, describing the sitter's eyes as too alive to belong to the dead. Days later, he was killed in an air raid. His letter survived. Today, the painting is nowhere to be found. Curators deny its existence. The inventory skips from item 1137 to 1139. Yet several night guards swear that on quiet shifts, they glimpse a gilt edge behind a linen curtain in the East Gallery. A shimmer, then nothing. Some say the woman was a mistress erased from history. Others a nameless victim of royal scandal. Perhaps she was merely art. But in Windsor, art and confession often share the same frame, and every portrait hides two faces, the one painted and the one that dares to look back. Beneath St. George's Chapel, the glittering heart of Windsor, lies a silence older than the crown itself. Visitors see the stained glass, the carved stalls, the marble monuments to valor. They do not see the narrow stairwell hidden behind a choir screen, nor the iron gate at its base, sealed with wax bearing the crest of George III. Few know why it was sealed at all. In 1813, masons working on the chapel floor discovered a cavity when no plan recorded one. When the first plank lifted, a warm breath of air escaped, scented faintly of oil and age. The men expected a burial vault. Instead, they found a stone door descending farther, carved with a single Latin phrase, non aperius nisi rex voluerit. Open, not unless the king commands. They obeyed. The stair was resealed, the wax impressed, the discovery forgotten except in whispers. A century later, curiosity revived. During maintenance after World War I, an engineer noticed that beneath the chapel's organ chamber, sound carried strangely, as if echoing through an empty space. He tapped the floor and heard hollowness. Records say he drilled a hole the width of a quill to test the void. A low moan rose through the opening, followed by what one witness called a scent like myrrh and iron. The hole was filled within the hour. Some claim the sealed room once served as a refuge for priests during the Reformation. Others insist it was a place of penance, where confessions too dangerous for heaven were buried alive. A royal chaplain in 1952 wrote privately that he had seen the door himself, the wax still unbroken, and that something moved behind it when the choir sang. His diary ends 2 days later with a final line. Forgive me for listening. During the renovations for Elizabeth II's Jubilee, ground-penetrating radar mapped a rectangular chamber directly beneath the choir stalls. The technicians noted readings consistent with metal, possibly coffins, but the palace ordered the data sealed. When journalists inquired, the press office replied only that no crypt exists beyond those already consecrated. Yet at night, the chapel guards report a faint vibration underfoot, like music played through stone. Sometimes it aligns with the hymns above, sometimes it does not. On cold evenings, frost forms in perfect circles over the spot where the hidden stair begins. What lies below remains speculation, bones, treasures, or guilt. But Windsor's genius has always been concealment. Every wall promises revelation and delivers denial. The sealed room beneath the chapel is not merely a mystery of architecture. It is a confession the monarchy has never finished. And until the wax melts or the courage to break it returns, that confession will keep breathing through the stone. At the heart of Windsor, beyond the tourists and the velvet ropes, lies a room few outside the royal household have ever entered: the archives. A plain wooden door marked only private record office conceals a vault of parchment, vellum, and ink spanning a millennium of monarchy. To scholars, it is the spine of England's history. To those who have spent long nights inside, it is something else entirely: a choir of whispers trapped in paper. Archivists insist the building hums because of ventilation. Yet many who have catalogued within its walls describe the sound differently. It begins faintly, like pages turning themselves. Then a low murmur fills the air, words without language, growing louder when the electric lights flicker. One clerk resigned after midnight inventory, writing in her report, "The documents were breathing." Among the most curious holdings are letters marked "restricted, not to be copied." Their seals, cracked and resealed over generations, carry faint fingerprints preserved in wax. Inside are fragments of stories deliberately unfinished: a queen pleading for forgiveness unnamed, a general confessing to a victory that never occurred, a physician describing a birth that must not be recorded. Entire dynasties might tilt if those pages ever saw daylight. There are missing volumes too, ledgers that simply stop mid-century, replaced by notations reading "transferred to Vault 9." No map shows Vault 9. Older employees say it lies beneath the round tower, accessible only through a stair that no longer exists. A rumor persists that every monarch, upon accession, is brought before the entrance to read one single, unnumbered file, the burden of knowledge, they call it, before the key is thrown into the Thames. In 1977, during the Silver Jubilee, a small fire broke out in the archive's east wing. Officially, an electrical fault. Unofficially, a young assistant named Fletcher later claimed he saw shelves collapse inward, as if pulled from behind. He spent his final years writing an unpublished book, The Voices of Windsor, confiscated upon his death. Only one line from the manuscript survives in a colleague's memory. "The past here does not rest. It rehearses." Visitors rarely sense this side of Windsor. They see framed manuscripts displayed safely behind glass, believing the story complete. But deep within, where light bulbs buzz and ink smells sweet and heavy, something keeps rewriting itself. Dust patterns shift. Margins fade and return. Even digital scans show distortions, outlines of hands where no hands should be. Perhaps it is nothing. Or perhaps history, like royalty, refuses to die quietly. The whispering archives stand as proof that memory can haunt just as fiercely as any ghost, and that the true curse of Windsor is not what it forgets, but what it remembers too well. Walk the grounds of Windsor at night, and you begin to understand why the English call it eternal. The castle glows faintly under the moon, its towers like ribs of a slumbering giant. Wind moves through the battlements, carrying the distant hum of the motorway, blending with whispers too old to name. Every monarch who ever drew breath within these walls left something behind. A sigh, a promise, a fragment of unfinished thought. And the stones have remembered them all. There is a moment, just before dawn, when the castle's lights dim and the horizon blushes pale grey. Guards say this is when the air changes, heavy yet expectant. If you stand on the terrace above the chapel, you can hear faint knocks from beneath the flagstones, the same rhythm that masons once swore was the sound of the earth settling. Others know it as Windsor's heartbeat. No other palace in the world has hosted so much life and so much loss. It has survived fires, plagues, betrayals, and the quiet collapse of dynasties. Its beauty is the beauty of endurance, and endurance always demands silence. That silence is not emptiness, it is debt, the weight of 1,000 unsolved mysteries pressing against each breath of the present. Even now, archivists still find scraps of letters misfiled in drawers, sketches of faces crossed out, pages that smell faintly of smoke, though no flame has touched them in centuries. Each discovery opens a door that cannot be closed again. And behind every door stands the same question. How much truth can a crown bear before it shatters? The modern monarchy calls Windsor its home, but in truth, Windsor owns the monarchy. It shelters them, judges them, and, when the time comes, swallows them whole. Kings are crowned in glory, buried in lead, and remembered by rumor. The stone outlives them all. When you next see the Union flag drifting above the round tower, remember what it hides. Not only honor, but consequence. Every coronation oath still echoes in the vaults below. Every secret still hums in the walls. The crown gleams because it reflects so much darkness. If you listen closely, beyond the speeches and the ceremony, you might hear what Windsor whispers to every generation that dares to rule from its heart. You are only my latest ghost. And if this story followed you tonight, let it stay. Leave a thought for those whose names never made it into the records, for those who kept the secrets so that history could wear a mask. Subscribe if you wish, and step deeper into the labyrinth of forgotten truths, because some truths deserve to be remembered, no matter how much they hurt.